Welcome everybody back to another episode of Rolling Credits. We got a whole squad here. We got Kirby, Pat, and Gums, of course. And today we're going to be talking about TV shows. Because, TV shows, there's just so many of them. We had to incorporate that. We always talk about movies, but where's the love for the TV shows? So, I know it's a new year, but I wanted to start off and seeing what was a show that you guys really loved in 2021. Was there a show that just blew your mind? So we'll start with you, Pat.
Shows that really blew my mind in 2021, the ones that I was really keen into. I was a big fan of the show Arcane on Netflix. For the gamers out there that are League of Legends fans, I wasn't even a big League of Legends player. I had watched a little bit of League of Legends before, but I didn't know much about the game, and I thought they did a really good job of creating this really cool fantasy world while making some subtle callbacks to the game for the true diehards, but also you didn't need to play the game to understand the League of Legends. So I thought they made some pretty cool characters out of that, a lot of promise in that show. And it made a big stride kind of all through a lot of those different communities, and I thought that was a really cool thing as well. So yeah, I think I'd go with Arcane to be my favorite from 2021. Nice. I think all time I always have to call back to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That one's just a long time binger for me, so that's kind of my
Always Sunny is always great.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Kirby?
I fell in love with Only Murders in the Building. I don't know if you guys have seen that one or saw anything about it.
I've heard of it.
Yeah,
I have not.
So it's a comedy, mystery type show. It's got Steve Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. So I'd heard somebody talking about it, and I wasn't really sure because Selena Gomez, I'm kind of whatever. But she was great in it. Her comedic timing is awesome in this show. It's really engaging. It's got a really cool, really fun story. It's centered around a podcast, so kind of fits in with this whole theme. So definitely watch it. And I think it just got renewed for a second season, so I'm stoked. But it was a great show. It was a lot of fun.
That is an all-star cast. For me, it's personally, I loved Yellowstone. So I just started that kind of, I found it on YouTube TV, and I just decided to just binge all of it, and I got hooked immediately. Kevin Costner's the man. It's such a good show, and honestly, I need some cowboy hats now. I feel like I need to become a cowboy.
Get the boots. Get you some cowboy boots.
That is just a show that everybody and their mother, and when I tell them I haven't seen it, it's you haven't seen Yellowstone? And that's just one that I feel in the past 3-4 months has really kind of blown up.
Dude, it's really good. I don't know how to explain it. It's just you feel like you're a cowboy. You feel like you're part of that world, and it does a really good job of bringing people in.
Yeah. Seth explained that how I explained love.
What about you, Gums? What do you got for us?
Okay. I'm not going to get into any bantering just yet. My favorite show of 2021, there's quite a few of them, and they're all a little different. So one of them was Swagger on Apple TV. It's just about some kids that are playing basketball on the AAU circuit, and then basically them coming up having to deal with life with COVID and other things and going through it. Solid show, just something that's near and dear to my heart since I grew up playing basketball. Another one's called Vincenzo. It's actually about a Korean-Italian mobster. He was raised in Italy as a mobster, as an accountant, basically, as basically a hitman type guy. And he goes on this quirky, weird adventure back to Korea to steal all this gold and all this money from somebody who already died because the mobsters want to kill him for some odd reason. And it's actually really funny, but then gets super serious, and he's whooping ass and taking names. It's called Vincenzo. Check it out. It's on Netflix. One of my other ones was How to Sell Drugs Online Fast, season 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just love that. It's just another overseas film or series that people don't talk about. Great series. I hope you check that out. I believe it's also on Netflix. So those are a few of them. Those are my top 3 that are tied. So.
I like it. There are so many good shows. There's a show on Netflix called Inside Job that was animated. I showed Kirby that one.
We were watching that last night, actually.
It's so funny. It's just about conspiracy theories, and it's a government organization that holds all these conspiracy theories, and it's just genius.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like American Dad, but for government.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. It's a great show.
Yeah.
So Combs, I know you wanted to talk about the difference between TV shows and streaming. So I want to hear your hot take on this.
Look, I need to understand when you ask this question, what's your favorite TV series of 2021? I was like, oh man, I've got to say it's For Life. And I've got to say it's one of these ones that I found on actual TV, not a streaming service. So I got all nervous. I was like, oh, okay, what do I got? So I need to know from the audience or from some viewers or just from you guys alone, what are we considering a TV series nowadays? I'm assuming it's something on TV or cable television, not something that's locked behind a paywall that's on a streaming service. You know what I mean? And so that's what I assume it to be. And I think there's some differences there. But I want to open up to you guys. If you guys got questions, I'll take them. But I want to talk to you guys about it.
I think that I think at its core, one of the hardest things I'm having with kind of the argument that things that you buy behind a paywall are not necessarily TV shows is that some of the widely regarded best shows of all time have always existed behind a paywall. Even when you talk about HBO and Showtime and them coming out with especially the OG Sopranos and The Wire and whatnot, you still watch those on your television, and cable sold you that channel as an add-on.
As an add-on.
Yeah. But that's still a TV show. It's a series with multiple episodes and a plot device with the same actors.
Got 'em.
And everything that's going on. I just don't see how
I
it's
call
not
those
a show.
HBO series or Showtime series, right? Because when I buy cable, I buy about 50 channels, and I have access to about 50 channels. So as a consumer, I have a choice to see all 50 for this amount. Now, on top of that, I'd have to pay additionally to get select series that only HBO makes or that only Showtime makes. And that is where I differentiate, because I say, okay, this is TV. Okay, soap operas, that's TV. Stuff on ABC, that's TV. The Drew Carey Show, TV. The Late Night Show, TV. But once we get into that, hey, come check out HBO Game of Thrones for an additional $20, it's a little different. Including the time frames, we're going from shows that were 30 minutes to fit live TV and criteria up to an hour. So while you are paying for it, you're paying for the higher quality, the bigger budget, that more cinematic feel because they do look better. But I think of those as streaming shows, or and that's how I've always perceived it.
But so even when you had cable though, there was always different packages of cable that came with even not even just but even with just network stuff. There were certain cable packages didn't come with TNT and or with AMC and stuff like that. But those are typically standard cable channels. So where it's I just think the line's too blurry. I don't know if I don't
Blurred.
think I just don't think I think it's too blurry to make that distinction. I think it's if it's a series style show, I think that's a TV show. I don't think I can make the distinction between this is a Netflix original, or this is an FX only, or this is an HBO, or and whatnot. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think the distinction would lie where they come out where it's here's a miniseries, a 6-part miniseries. That's not a TV show. That's a movie. They'll have just a 6-part episode thing, and that's it. No new seasons, nothing.
I can kind of get behind that. Because a miniseries exists in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
It's not the show didn't get renewed for another season, or they didn't have something else there. It just had those 4 episodes, and then it went out of existence. It wasn't expected to have more.
You know what that's called?
Anything.
That's called a beta. All they're
called a
doing
beta.
It's a beta test.
Beta test.
All
TV
they're
beta.
doing is saying, hey, could this work? And if it works, and that miniseries technically would get picked up by somebody, right? Oh, my miniseries got picked up by somebody. That's all that is. That's a test audience.
Yeah. See,
That's
I
all
think
that
that anything that has seasons to it, regardless of what platform it is on, that's a TV show, because the paywall argument, it doesn't really hold up because you still have to pay for basic cable. That is a paywall. You don't watch that unless you're paying for it. Now, somebody like me, I don't have cable. I have no cable services. I've got Netflix, I've got Hulu, HBO Max, stuff like that, Amazon Prime, and that's where I watch the majority of my television. When you say TV show, the thing that a TV show to me is something that you watch on your television, because that is the main focus of that that name. It's a television show. So the medium doesn't really matter. It's got to be a show. It's got to have episodes and seasons. And that's it. That's my criteria for a television show.
It would have to, because that's the only way it works in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Because you can watch it on your iPad, you can watch it on your phone. You said it has to be on the TV, but then you said it doesn't matter the medium. So it was kind of contradictory.
A little bit, yeah.
I'll
But
let it slide.
Yeah,
I'll
like
let it slide.
you get what I'm saying. It's. I mean,
You
I
get
don't.
what you're putting down.
I don't watch
Can
I don't.
Can
sit
I watch
and-
cable? Can I watch cable now on my iPad and stuff and on my cell phone?
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah. I don't
watch
know.
my
I don't have
YouTube
cable,
TV.
so I don't know.
Me and Greg share YouTube TV. I watch it on my phone all the time.
I actually think that what kind of Kirby brought up actually kind of brings up an interesting argument about like the distinction in TV and whatnot relative to movies even, because like what Kirby said is like something that you watched on your television, right? And the distinction there was that a movie was something you watched in a movie theater. And even with the growth of streaming services, even when they put movies on there, they always released in a theater first. And that
Don't
was
do
the
this, Pat.
distinction. Is it launched in that sense? But it's specifically in the past 2 years with COVID and what it did to the movie industry, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Don't do this,
HBO
Pat.
does these things here. I'm doing it.
We're going down this rabbit hole.
So now if you want to go down this rabbit hole, is it like, because now you used to have made for TV movies. It was its own category. And like now you have big budget studios that just release their movie on Netflix or HBO. So like, if that line's blurred now, it's just getting blurrier and blurrier.
Oh my god! In that case, Lifetime movies that have over 3 or 4 editions, like Princess Switch 1, Princess Switch 3, Switch 4. Those are series. Fuck that. Those are TV series.
Right?
From now on. Those are not
like-
TV series.
Well, so like, I guess, a question that you guys kind of just brought up in my head here is like, is normal TV like dead? Because
Yes.
I feel like normal television, all of that stuff's on streaming platforms. Like Yellowstone is on TNT, I believe, but it's also on like Peacock and Paramount.
Yeah.
So like most of those viewings are probably coming from the apps.
Yep.
So like, at what point does like TV cease to exist?
When the current older generation passes on, regular TV as we know it is pretty much done. I was at a presentation for work, and I think Pat, Seth, Dustin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was giving a presentation, and it's all about moving the way that we use ads and the way that we find new customers into like the current, like just into the future, into like the current century, pretty much. And he's talking about like billboards don't really matter anymore. Magazine ads don't matter anymore. And he posed the questions like, all right, anybody in the audience who has cable, raise your hand. It's kind of a handful of people. No, like out of like 250 plus people is maybe 10, 15. And he's like, that is a frightening thing for cable companies because everything's streaming now. So the whole point was, targeting ads is going on like social media, streaming. But yeah, when that generation that still does watch, regular cable, when they're gone, those cable companies are going to be relying solely on streaming pretty much.
Yeah. One thing we need to do defensively, though, is to stop cable companies now from selling me fucking Wi-Fi for $200 a month.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I swear to fucking goodness, I will create my own Wi-Fi. I will put 2 tenders together in a metal stick, and I'll figure that shit out if you keep playing around.
Yeah.
You become an
That's
engineer real fast.
That's why I like YouTube TV, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's like those things are starting to get expensive because of all the add-ons and things.
Yep.
And I will say, like, because we brought up, as TV shows dying for like movie theaters, there was a point during COVID I didn't think that it would rebound, but I feel like movie theaters are going to be like a staple. Like you can't get rid of movie theaters.
Yep.
I do get that there's a generation that likes to watch that stuff at home.
Yep.
But like Spider-Man just released, and it's like the 6th most was like the most viewed movie in like years.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I don't see
as long as
movie
that sticks
theaters.
around.
I don't see movie theaters going away. That in itself, it's so ingrained in our way of life, and it's just everybody loves going to the movies. Like that's not going away.
It's an experience. It's like going to a concert.
Yep.
concerts aren't going away. You go there for the people, for the reaction, for the vibe, for the venue. And like, I don't see that going away, but I can see that if we didn't have theaters and people watch stuff at home, nobody's going to like pay attention anymore. They're just in their phones and it's really bad. Like, I don't think people are paying attention.
Yeah. I think relative to the TV being dead question, like, I think that we're really close to that concept, especially now that you're starting to see like these streaming services actually buy full networks and having exclusive rights to networks now. Like Hulu is basically an exclusive streaming site to FX shows, where like FX now has all of their shows and all of their originals are all on Hulu. And you're seeing Netflix buy a bunch of ABC shows. What was it? The Good Place, and like I think The Good Place was ABC. I can't remember which one it was, but
it's on Netflix.
But I know it's on Netflix. I just can't remember what network it was from. But like, you see them buy so many of these network shows, like you don't need cable now to watch those networks pretty much at all. Like maybe outside of sports, that's kind of the last real thing that like cable television is really kind of hanging on to, and even that's fading pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like, so it's kind of this like weird middle ground where we're approaching that moment pretty quickly.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but pay-per-view should be dead only because I could see Netflix taking that and going, welcome to the Netflix fight of the night. Like, they could just straight up take UFC, put it on Netflix, and boy, would people rage. Like, that'd be amazing, right? Like,
I mean, you don't want me to get down that rabbit hole of bitching about ESPN Plus and UFC deals. It's like I can go to a long rabbit hole about that one.
That's what the metaverse is for. We're going to be able to
put it on another podcast
online.
Put it on another podcast later. Yep. But what else was there? I know Pat's a little limited on time.
Yeah. So basically, the next question, since we've already been talking about streaming, how do you guys feel about them dropping all the episodes at once, or do you like it where it's like every week? And we'll start with you, Gums.
Yeah, I don't got shit to do, so drop it all at once. Okay, drop it like it's hot. I want Too Short to be in there saying "bitch." Like, I want it all. I like it that way because I don't like the cliffhangers. I don't like to try to piece stuff together week after week. I mean, I wouldn't mind if you wanted to break it up like 2 episodes per week. But that 1 episode a week stuff is kind of dying out. It's kind of dead because your attention spans now are so short, and marketing is seeing that, research is seeing that. So if you don't get a hit off that first season or those first few episodes and people are ingrained to want to see it, they just probably won't look at it again. So you have a very limited window. So I think that dropping it in whole is the new wave and the thing to do, so they can start working on the next seasons and greenlighting stuff. So
what about you, Gums? Or Pat?
I actually think it's really genre dependent. Like, I think it's easier to put out a whole season of like a 30-minute comedy show and like have it really translate well to an audience. And I think that I, as a consumer, am really cool with that. I think it's easy to like, hey, let's just binge through this, get some laughs, like kind of get through this, say it's all well and good. Like, I think though that certain series, and like, I think Netflix even does have this problem sometimes. Like, I don't know if Narcos needs to be a whole season out at once kind of thing. Like, there's something like, well, and I compare that to shows like almost like it was like when The Wire came out or Game of Thrones and stuff like that. I really liked waiting that week for after a crazy cliffhanger and like going into that next Sunday's episode. But like, I just don't, I think it's very genre specific. I think if they did that when they do that with something like It's Always Sunny, obviously they did that when it was on network television, and they still do that. But like, relative to a streaming service, like, I think that those types of shows, you can probably release a whole thing and it's not really going to do me one the wiser. Like, it's just like, it just is what it is. I'm going to get my laughs out of it. I'm going to watch as much of the season as I want. Or I'm going to watch the whole thing in a weekend. Yeah. So I think it really depends on the genre of show that you're watching.
Kirby?
That's fair. I'm spoiled. I like everything to just be out at once so I can binge it and then I can move on to something else. So I think what Lauren and I just knocked out the new season of Cobra Kai in like 2 days. Because they're half-hour episodes, like it's real quick. So I like knocking that out, and then we're gonna start watching something else. I think one of the more interesting things recently, Wheel of Time came out on Amazon Prime, and I think they released like the first 2 or 3 episodes like day one, and then like they would release one after, so people had a couple episodes to get into it and decide if they want to keep watching it. So I think that might be a good way for streaming services to go if they are going to do a week by week. Day one, drop a couple episodes, let people get a feel for it, and then they're hooked and they'll keep coming back week after week. But for me personally, I just like it all out at once so I can binge it, and then I'm going to start watching another show.
Can we and Seth, I think you still got to go, but I want us to really think about that. Why were they dropping it weekly? Just think about it for a second. We don't have to answer right now, but why were they dropping it weekly on network television? Okay, just think about it.
I'll answer it because it kind of leads into like my response anyway.
Perfect.
So I think if you leave a show on a cliffhanger every week, it makes that person want to come back and watch that show more.
Mm-hmm.
And I do miss having that, like where, you watch something on Netflix or, one of the other streaming services, you get everything at once, which is cool. But I feel like it's not as exciting. Like when we were younger, you'd be like, oh, I can't wait for this next episode.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like excitement with that. So it brings you back to that channel, to that station to catch what's happening next week. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Well, here, I'm gonna be real with you guys. That's all a scam. And I'll say it like this. The reason that they put it weekly was so that you came back, so that you watched their other shows on their network, so that you watched their commercials and ads that people were paying for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you had, you had to have eyeballs on screens back then so that you could get sold all the goodies or watch the show before and watch the show after, et cetera, et cetera. So like for me, in my opinion, the way that this world's changing, I mean, the cliffhangers and stuff for us were more nostalgia now because they're not exactly selling us ad right on Netflix, right? They're not like after each season. Hulu does it. I think Hulu still does it, right, with ads.
Yeah,
and,
depending on the subscription service or whatever, yeah.
Right. So like if you really think about it from a logical standpoint, they weren't holding off a week to catch up. No, these guys had these whole seasons recorded already and they released them weekly so you'd come back to watch their other network shows. So it really wasn't about leaving you on edge. It was really about getting your eyeballs back to their screen so they could have better rating and reviews and viewership than their competitors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think that you can really debate that. I think that's obviously definitely the case, right? Like that's why like Friday night, it was like, I think, what was the prime time? So it was either Thursdays or Fridays at like the 9 o'clock slot was like the most valuable slot on television or something like that for network cable for like the longest time. And like that's where all the crazy ad spots were. Yep. And that's like what was the most valuable spots in television. But at the same time, I think that it's also a product of its time in that you did really have to cliffhang them to make sure they came back. Because if you paid all this money and made sure that you got in that slot, they didn't come back week 2. Like you didn't make it to the end of the season.
Yeah,
it's like you had to do it. Like so, scam or not, like they knew they had to make sure that you came back. But yes, especially for shows of that era, it was definitely designed to make sure that you watched the slot before it, because you usually had to catch the end of that slot. Yep. So it's like if you watch the last 15 minutes of the show like before the one you wanted to watch, you'd be like, wait, what was this crazy show? Or if you kept the TV on after and caught the first 15 minutes after, it might hook you on that too.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So
as long as everybody knows the game.
I don't think it's debatable. I just think it was also pretty necessary.
Well, they're continuing that that scam as we're calling it with shows like the Arrowverse on CW, like Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow.
They kill them every season.
Where they all cross over. So you have to what the hell happened in this show on this episode when he was over here? And so now you're seeing a lot of crossovers and tie-ins to other shows and stuff to get people to watch, this show or that show or whatever. So now that's
pretty cool.
I love it. Like I'm a sucker for shit like that. Like I am that target audience because I will watch this other show to find out what's going on.
I'm too. Imagine freaking they did Endgame as a TV show or Infinity War.
Christ.
And then they just dropped all of that at once. That effect of the ending of Infinity War wouldn't have been the same.
No.
Yeah.
So we'll keep going here. With all the shows that we've seen over time, is there one show that each of you would bring back? And I'll start with myself here. For me, it's Chuck. I absolutely loved that show. And it just kind of like the ending just felt like it was kind of forced. I feel like the show got canceled and they kind of had to like do something last minute to make it fit in. But it just, I feel like it, from everything that character went through, to have the ending be like that and kind of like start over, I was just like, why? Why? So that for me is the one show I wish they bring back and just like, you know, fix that. What about you, Pat?
I think from like shows like that, from like a drama perspective and whatnot, whether they ended, if they ended good, it's like one of those ones where I'm like, I don't want to touch that. I like that memory. And then for a lot of the ones that maybe had a really good run and then ended poorly, I can't like, I'll be like, dude, just don't bother, don't either. Because I think I'm the pessimist that says don't screw it up even more. Like just leave it as it is. You had your run, finish it up. We'll remember it as it is. I think for me, like for shows I'd want to bring back, it's more like I'd bring back Community, like those like a comedy show like that, where it's like it would be so easy just to jump in it. Like, you know, you could really kind of make something a little bit more out of it, and I think it would resonate really well with that audience. So I think that's kind of where I land on that subject.
Nice. Shows I'd bring back. I mean, there's too many, and there's a lot that I know I've forgotten. And so it's a really interesting question. A few that I can think of is there was this show called I Am Not Okay With This. And it's basically about this girl who was like coming of age, had a crush on her best friend, was very tomboyish, didn't know her sexuality. And then all of a sudden she got superpowers. But she was also like had like abusive parents, and then she like blew somebody's head up with her superpowers. I don't know. It was a lot going on in there, but I really want you guys to watch it. Like it was a really good flick, and I just wish that one would have kept going. There's another one called Misfits. Misfits is a little older, but it's actually an over the seas one. It's kind of like The Office, where it started off over the pond and then it came over to like America and stuff. So Misfits is basically about a group of people who also get abilities, and they're not so, you know, their life's not so simple. They're all not even prisoners. They do like community service and stuff. They're teenagers, but they're learning about their abilities, and some of them are just really jacked up, their abilities, and so they kill some people on accident or they do messed up stuff. And that's another show I'd really like to see back on.
Curbs?
I am torn on, I mean, there's so many, but there was a show on Sci-Fi, I think it ran 3 seasons, called Dark Matter.
Great show.
I love that show. And, you know, season 3 ended on such this crazy cliffhanger, and then they canceled it. I'm still pissed about it. So I would definitely bring back Dark Matter, and like Guilty Pleasure 24. Never matter. It doesn't matter what season of 24 you're on. There's always something going on. Jack Bauer's always in some sort of trouble. I love Kiefer Sutherland, so I could watch, you know, another 5 seasons of him just doing whatever the hell it is he has to do that season. But
I almost forgot. Oh, sorry. Finish what you're saying.
Dark Matter is like my number one.
I was gonna say too, because I forgot about this show, but The Magicians. I absolutely love that show, and it got canceled, and they just decided to throw like kind of the ending together, because I think they were filming when it got canceled, but they weren't able to do it justice. And I really want that show to come back because it just was so.
It was a good show for sure.
Really good.
Just staying on the 24 thing, I feel like 24 was that era of network television with like specifically with like cop and spy shows where it was like, let's just make the most outlandish story humanly possible.
Exactly.
And just like, and give it like a Jason Bourne background. Like, you know, like just like let them run. Like, and just no one will question it. And it worked. It got me too. Like,
Stabler's Jason Bourne.
Yeah, it's like it's its own like branch of the same product.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Really, what a time to be alive,
right?
man!
What a time.
Early 2000s and 90s, undefeated.
Wild.
So,
Hey everyone. Thank you for checking out this episode of the Rolling Credits podcast. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please drop us a like, hit that subscribe button. If you are listening to the audio-only version of this podcast, please consider giving us a 5-star rating. It really helps us out. Now, let's keep it rolling.
So with the shows we want to bring back, you know, there were so many shows that just ended so poorly that we're just like, why did you even like bother? So that's what I want to ask you guys. Which show did you like hate the ending on? Like, what was the worst ending for you guys? So we'll start with you, Kirby.
That's a really hard one because my knee-jerk reaction is Game of Thrones.
Right.
Fuck D&D. Fuck both of them. I can't even go back and watch earlier seasons because I know how shitty that show ended. But also How I Met Your Mother. I think the ending of How I Met Your Mother just completely invalidated the entire series. But
Robin,
you know,
Robin Scherbatsky.
Yeah, fucking Robin. But yeah, no, I think Game of Thrones, they just did that entire series so dirty. And it was rushed. They were given, I think, a total of like 10 to 12 episodes to wrap everything up. And they're like, oh no, we'll do it in 8. And then they just rushed everything. It was the dumbest shit ever. They will forever go down as like the worst TV, producers, writers, whatever, like just ever. Because they're fucking terrible.
And you saw they tried to give them. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
I think that's part of like the inherent problem with the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones is I don't think that the events, the fact that they actually happened, like in the way that they happened, that's not what angers people about the ending of that show. Is that typically in a Game of Thrones season is that those things will happen and you might not like necessarily the fact that they happen, but they set them up over like entire episodes or maybe a whole episode, not a whole lot happens, but it makes episode 12 just such a payoff, right? And they just didn't do that. So by the time you get the episode 8, you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, what am I looking at? Like, so that was a big one for me too. Like, I was such a Game of Thrones nerd, and I was so pissed off. Like,
yeah, but I was gonna say D&D. Both of those guys were helmed with doing a Star Wars project, and Disney was like, "Nope, we're not doing that." So they canned it.
Well, isn't it like the rumor was that they rushed the end of Game of Thrones to do this Star Wars thing, and the backlash was so bad they got just kicked off, which they deserve. Well,
yeah,
100%.
I think for me personally, and then we'll end with you, Gums. I think personally, it's also Game of Thrones, just because like Jon Snow's character arc just doesn't make any sense. Like if you go through the whole entire season, like the whole series, he's supposed to be the one who kills the White Walker. It's not him. And then he's built up to be like the king, and then he just goes back to the wall. Yeah. Like what was the point of having that character?
There wasn't.
Like, yeah, it just didn't make sense to me. And then like the Dany thing of her becoming like evil, like you could see that coming from a mile away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think to my point here is that I think you could have set those up so much deeper, like gotten so much further into Dany's rage and like set that up so well over 3 or 4 episodes and then let her snap.
Yeah.
She snaps like 2 episodes in and you're like, what the hell? Like,
yeah. And Jaime and Cersei did not, they deserved a worse death.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just fell some bricks on them. Gums, are you continuing the trend or what?
I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's probably the one where you're like, what? Like even me as not having known any of the back lore or anything. I mean, I was just kind of like, what? I really don't know. I think there was a lot of crappy endings because they just had to get stuff down. I mean, shit. Roseanne had a shitty ending. It didn't make sense. Like, I mean, there's like a lot to go off of. I really don't have an answer for this. I have to say this isn't something I have an answer for because I would probably disagree with you guys on this because it was one of the few shows that I was like, what the hell happened here at the end? It almost reminded me of Aragon, the movie, or Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z.
One of some of the worst shit I've ever seen of all time. But yeah, I don't know. That's my answer. I don't have much for you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I actually pose a bit of a question in here about
please go.
kind of a different twist, like on the same question? Like, was anybody here big Sopranos fan?
Yeah.
I
You're a
never
big
actually
Sopranos
watched
guy?
it.
Yeah, great show, phenomenal show. So then, Seth, I'll kind of ask you about the ending of that show. Because, in my opinion, Sopranos, the final season, is phenomenal. The actual season itself. But especially if you ask kind of the old heads that watched it on cable television, I used to have the big box set of all the VCRs, the VHSs. like in sitting on like my parents' mantle or something like that that they'd watch when I got older and stuff like that.
Bunch of VCRs.
Yeah, a bunch of yeah. But that last episode is super controversial in and of itself, just because of the way that it just, I'm sure even if you guys haven't seen it, you guys understand the reference to the end of the episode just cutting to black.
Yep.
Right. So where does that kind of fall for you in this same kind of conversation? Because that last season is so highly regarded, but that last episode is so back and forth with how people feel about it for an ending of a show.
I feel like for me to answer that question, it's like it was only one episode, so it's like it doesn't take that big of a hit, whereas like Game of Thrones, that whole last season just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on that, but at the same time, it is like Sopranos, especially at its peak, was handedly the most popular show on television. Wasn't even fucking close.
Yeah.
Right? And it was HBO's like one of the massive shows that had so many seasons, and the payoff for the end of the show was just a black frame, and as they all walk into a diner, the show basically just like didn't end.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about shows you could bring back? You could bring back The Sopranos and start it in the next frame, and it would start off in the exact same spot.
Mm-hmm.
They did that with Dexter. I feel they did that with Dexter. They brought it back.
Yeah.
You would hate The Sopranos if they did that.
True.
Because it wouldn't be what it was. You know what I mean?
That's true.
You'd
That's
wreck
very
something.
true.
That's probably why they ended it like that. But like, speaking of, so Pat, are you saying like, can one episode ruin the entire season? Is that kind of like what you're asking?
Can it botch like almost a whole show?
I think so. I think it's always about how you finish, man. It's not about how you start, it's how you finish. That's kind of the life lesson. And I think that if you build something up to that grandeur and you don't finish strong, there's always going to be ridicule and stuff that forever shadows it. Now, if you're going for that, though, if you want to become a legend and you kind of want people to talk about you for eternity, like that's a good way to do it. Sure. But there's very few shows out there that I think have such great endings because they've hit their pinnacle so high that they can't go above it.
Wire hit that same spot. Wire's last season is wild. They pretty much hated. Like, it's just not something, and that show's phenomenal. Love that show, but that last season isn't the same.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z has the same issue. They just keep powering these motherfuckers up. They just can never kill them. So,
Kirby, did you have any input here?
I mean, I agree. Like, I never watched Sopranos, but I know that that last episode, because it is so just like infamous, like and it divides people so much. Like, some people absolutely love the way that it ended, and some people absolutely freaking hate it. So yeah, I think Scrubs was kind of the same way.
Oh yeah, Scrubs was great.
Like
that had a weird ending.
Yeah, it was a solid series, and then like I guess the whole last season was kind of whatever.
You can tell they're on their way out.
Yeah, they just kind of fizzled. And what was it? I can't remember what show it was, but they're like, we want to stop when we're at a high point and not like fizzle out, because you'll have shows like Supernatural that run 15 seasons. And granted, I do love Supernatural, but it's gone on a little too long. But yeah, I think if you don't wrap it up correctly, like you can just absolutely ruin everything that you've built. So.
I think we're seeing a trend here though too, is like HBO just doesn't know how to finish a show. Game of Thrones, Sopranos, The Leftovers.
They can never make it on TV.
Like every
never make it on real TV.
HBO, figure it out, man.
I know, really.
The best way, the most fun ways I've seen to wrap up like series is the classic bring everybody back in a nostalgia rush of
Spider-Man.
Just beautiful stuff, and then end it like, bring all these cool main characters back from not dead characters, but just like characters back that went away mysteriously, and just bring them all back, have these nostalgia kicks, have like a really cool like power up or something strong happen to the character that makes them even better or superior, and then kind of end it that way without,
I still think the best TV show ending, especially in recent memory, is still probably got to be Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah.
Breaking Bad's one of the ones that like was such an intense show that wrapped it up so well. And it was because it was this like had a little bit of the cliffhang, but it was still like, Walt got like really what he deserved. Jesse's so battered and broken, fucking like finally breaking out in a way from like the clutches of that life a little bit. And I think that was one that, I mean, that show obviously very poetic in nature all the way through, but like it definitely was one I thought they did a really good job with that ending.
Yeah. That's fair.
Cross my fingers for Ozarks.
Oh yeah, I was just about to bring
baby.
that up. The finale, series finale is in a couple of weeks, and I hope that show ends good because that is a fantastic show.
Fantastic.
It's funny too. You bring up Breaking Bad, so I always wanted to watch that show, but I turned it on TV because they were doing like a rerun of all the episodes, and because I'd never seen it, and the episode that I turned on, it said first episode, but it was the last episode. So I watched the whole ending, and I was like,
shit.
oh. So
Well
I can't justify going back and like watching the whole show now that I know everything.
Must have been real TV that got
It
you
was.
like that.
It was.
Yeah. Must have been that good old cable TV.
Them commercials. So speaking of nostalgia, I know you brought that up, Gums. What was your guys' favorite cartoon growing up? You know, we have some favorites, I'm sure. So we'll start with you, Kirby.
The X-Men cartoon. So I yeah, I'm
Facts.
old. I remember when I was little going to, I think it was Pizza Hut, and like got some certain meal and you got a VHS with a couple episodes of the X-Men cartoon. And that was my introduction to like the comic book world, like that whole deal. So that really launched me on this nerd journey.
What a time to be alive.
Right? Oh, we got good news. X-Men's coming back on Disney Plus.
Yep.
X-Men 97.
Yeah. Now I've been watching like I watched through everything when they uploaded it to Disney Plus, and I'm definitely gonna be watching the rest of it. But yeah, X-Men was hands down my favorite cartoon when I was younger.
Gums.
Man, I got too damn many, man. Like, Ronin Warriors was big for me. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it was like Power Rangers with samurai armor. It's called Ronin Warriors. What is it? Thundercats was one of my favorites. I've got other ones like the Mighty Ducks. That was sick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You've got like the Nickelodeon ones, like Recess, Hey Arnold. I really loved Gargoyle, which I think was like
yeah.
a Disney
That shit's so
show.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like-
It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it is.
Like, bro, don't even start me on these freaking things, man, because like I will go down some journeys with you. There's too many Voltron. I will Beetleborgs, bro. You don't even know my limits here, but there's quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Curbs?
I already went.
Pat, but you
Pat.
know,
You already went.
I was a classic SpongeBob kid, just through and through. Like had to do it. I was a SpongeBob kid held through middle school. I was like, I didn't care. I thought this was great. I remember I had a high school girlfriend give me the complete third season of SpongeBob, like on DVD for Christmas one year when I was like a junior in high school. I thought it was awesome.
Nice.
Like, so it was probably hung on to that a little too long. I'm pretty sure it's still in my car right now.
But it's
So so it's one of those things that just always kind of stuck with me. But yeah, I'm an OG SpongeBob kid.
You don't have to lie to us. We know you like Captain Planet.
I did love that Mighty Duck show. That Mighty Duck show was lit.
Sick, dude.
Yeah.
So for me, it's got to be Scooby-Doo. I absolutely
yeah.
love Scooby-Doo growing up. Like, just them solving mysteries. You know, Shaggy and Scooby were just getting high in the back of the van. Eating, they got the munchies every episode.
Yeah.
I never realized that until I got older, but
Same.
that's really funny.
Yeah.
Some of the dog shows were great. Like, Scooby-Doo is awesome. Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Mm-hmm.
Curse Cowardly
Dexter's-
Dog was wild.
Yeah.
That was such a wild
That shit was
concept for
scary.
kids. Yeah.
That was cool.
Pinky and the Brain. Man, there were so many
There's-
good cartoons.
Yeah.
There really was. There was some that like okay, for instance, I'm telling you guys might not like me for this, but like I found Animaniacs to be very annoying.
Yes.
I found Ed, Ed, and Eddie to be highly annoying, but it was somewhat okay. I found there was this one I remember in my brain. Freakazoid, is it called?
Oh,
it's like this
yeah.
blue dude who's all crazy.
Freakazoid.
Like, there's a couple on there that I really just like didn't understand. But I'll tell you that I also found my love of anime when I was a young kid, and it was on Toonami, and I was watching The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Now, if anybody's ever seen Johnny Quest, The Real Adventures, Johnny Quest starts in like 1964, man. Your parents probably know about this. And or your grandparents, for some of you right out there. But The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest was like the first cartoon to take it into VR, and then also to upgrade their animation within their cartoon. I don't know how to explain that. It's like watching Zoids, which is another good one. It's amazing. Check it out. But that's where I found like Dragon Ball Z and all the rest of the shows I ended up growing up to watch, man. Toonami, shout out and love. I'd be remiss not to shout you out.
If you're enjoying this podcast, make sure to check out my movie and TV show review page called According to Seth. So it's According to Seth, and I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube for some more amazing content and some fun clips. So make sure you stop by. So we got time for one more question here. And I wanted to bring this one up. So I feel like animation and like animated shows have really like adapted with our generation, and they've become more adult. Like there still is kid shows, but do you have like a show, for example, like Rick and Morty, or one of those shows that you enjoy watching right now? And we'll start with you, Gums.
Dude, I love anime, bro. So let's just take those off the table, because I don't think that's what you're talking about. So that's a style change, but I love anime. A lot of people nowadays love anime. It's becoming very, very popular from a young age, but I had to go through it when that shit wasn't cool. But I was also a jock, so I didn't give a shit. So whatever. I would say that some of like I think Rick and Morty's hilarious. I think South Park will forever be number one. The Simpsons is great. I think The Simpsons set up a lot of the shows that we love today for their style of humor. The Simpsons was like the tamest on air you could get with being over the top. And then you had South Park, and then you had American Dad, then you had Family Guy, like all those kind of running together. I think there's one on Netflix called PD something.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
So that's good. But I still think the best writing and the coolest adventures is probably Rick and Morty right now, as far as like cartoonish adult animation.
I do feel like The Simpsons like walked so that South Park could run. Like if
100%.
if they kind of creaked it open, like South Park really kicked it off the hinges. South Park is like, for me, like just one of the greatest. It's like even just animated, non-animated is still one of the greatest out there, right?
Yep.
Some of the writing that they did, like in just like, I don't know if you guys ever saw those documentaries about what they did, about like the prep for the episodes, about how they go in and they're turning it into Comedy Central like 15 minutes before it airs, and like all the things they did for, I remember like Obama and McCain's election. It was like they had 2 episodes ready to go, and like the moment the ballots were counted, they had one for that election. Like the way that they were able to do like topical subjects, I just remember like watching those episodes and being like, that story that they're referencing came out 2 days ago. Yeah. What just happened? Like,
it's pretty crazy. Same with The Simpsons. Like they can tell the future.
Oh yeah.
That's on some crazy shit. But
Straight
yeah,
writing,
it's
nuts.
But South Park really was like, it was vulgar, but it was so nuanced. And it was like so topical, because they'd really hit you pretty hard in a sense that you had to laugh because you knew it was funny, even if it ticked you off. Like there was nothing you could do about it. Like, and just the way they did that with just such a middle finger to everybody in the audience was so great.
100%.
Yeah.
Curbs, what do you got for us?
So modern animated, I think my favorite has to be Archer. That style of humor sits so well with me. So it's got to be Archer. I mean, like, Seth, you and I have had this conversation before. I don't really watch a whole lot of animated stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of limited. Like, I've watched like Family Guy, but Archer is kind of the one that really resonates well with me. So that would be my.
I'll have to check that out, Curbs, because I didn't like Archer. I didn't like BoJackman.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to check them back out as now that I'm older and like can like
Archer's great.
Understand it.
Yeah,
Archer's a great show.
I do like
I
Archer.
love Archer. I think the later seasons, like it started to kind of taper off a little bit in like the last like 2 seasons a little bit. I don't find it as funny.
Yeah.
But those first, like, I want to say it's like 4 seasons,
Mhm.
4, maybe 5 seasons are hilarious.
And that's all
like,
I've watched too. I haven't watched anything recent.
Yeah, I think the most recent seasons it's like they really got screwed right around, I think it's like season 3.
Mhm.
And the reason that they do is because the name of their spy organization in the first 3 seasons is ISIS.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I remember that.
they literally have to, and the producers of the show literally had to change the name of like the central plot point of this show because of ISIS.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I think that they were able to take it from there and create a couple seasons that were still super funny.
Mhm.
But like that core like kind of breakdown of the show, I think really hurt these like last like 2 seasons of that show.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Great Run. That's another one where you're like, man, that's just like so unfortunate. Like you had to choose like the International Secret Intelligence Service or something like that. It's like what they did it as.
Yeah.
You're like, man, that sucks. Like,
So for me, and I kind of want to go circle back to that, but for me, Bob's Burgers, I absolutely love that show. Like at any mood, I can just put it on the background and just sit there and watch it. Like Luis, like one of my favorite characters, just such a fun show. And it's literally just about a dad who cooks burgers and all of their shenanigans throughout the town. Like it's pretty awesome. But it is crazy, like, 2021 and like all of this stuff is like, it's not weird for an adult to watch like a Bob's Burgers or something like that. It's like the nerds are winning, guys. The nerds are
absolutely.
winning.
Yeah.
facts.
When I knew that was true was Robot Chicken, man. I fell in love with Robot Chicken. That's when I knew the nerds were winning. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great.
I think you definitely see it in kind of Gums. You kind of brought it up about like how much popular anime is now.
It's huge.
Like the amount of people that are watching like Attack on Titan or Jujutsu Kaisen, like they all stream on HBO. Those are big name networks picking up like new anime shows for American audiences, and like that's something that you start to see like that culture that maybe would have been like suppressed in like 2001. Is like now like pretty mainstream.
And granted, we don't consume the same way we used to. So you're not seeing the Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Pokemon, which are also anime, right? Some of our favorite stuff is anime. But like you're not seeing all these cartoons that we used to see anymore in our faces like they used to be. Nickelodeon, like Cartoon Network, we're not seeing that anymore. It's all like, hey, you're getting your stuff off Netflix and stuff like that. And a lot of that is anime. So that's kind of where that's really coming from, in my opinion. And I'd love to discuss it sometime. But
Yeah, we'll have to all watch some anime so we can catch up on that episode. You might just have to do it yourself, bro.
I got a few
Post
good
your own
ones,
anime
man.
podcast.
There you go.
I got a good one.
There you go.
So I hope everybody enjoyed the podcast today. Maybe you got some new favorite shows you want to check out. But with that being said, Gums, send us out, baby.
Tune into our podcast on your favorite streaming services or maybe even television. Anyways, let's keep it rolling.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Rolling Credits Podcast. Be sure to give us a listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, Google Play, or a full video recording on our YouTube page. And be sure to check us out on our social medias at Rolling Credits Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you, and we'll catch you on the next one.